Fahlman. Good morning.
Good morning, Peg. How are you?
How are you?
Living the dream.
You're living the dream. What do you mean by that? I hear you give that response
I
a
know
lot.
people tell me I should say living the mission. I thought about changing it, but nobody at work would understand it, so I'm living the dream. My life is wonderful.
Every bit of your life is wonderful.
Pretty much, yeah. And if it's not wonderful, then I just work it until it gets wonderful again.
Where did you get that attitude? How did you get that attitude?
I have no idea. I was born this way.
You were born. And where were you born?
I was born in a tiny, tiny town in New York, about 90 minutes from the city. So it was close enough to enjoy Broadway and the New York Yankees, and far enough that you could leave your keys in your car and your doors unlocked in the neighborhood.
And your family, your siblings?
So I am the second girl. I have an older sister, then I'm the second girl, and actually that's how I got my name. My parents prayed to Mary to get pregnant, and they promised Mary that if they got pregnant, they would name the baby after her, and I'm so glad I wasn't a boy. So I'm Mary Ann, and I actually have a special devotion to Mary too. I ask Mary for help when I need help. And then I have two brothers and another sister underneath me.
Okay. What would you say was a value you got in your family life?
Okay, so my parents were prison guards. Both my mother and my father were.
What was the prison? Where?
It was Mattawan State Hospital, state of New York, and it was a forensic hospital for the criminally insane. I don't think we have them anymore.
Okay.
I think Ipsy had a wing when we had Ipsy Mental Hospital. They had a wing, but this was a multi-acre campus, hundreds of buildings of just people in New York who were declared criminally insane. They had committed capital crimes, and they were behind bars. It was a prison, only they weren't. They weren't capable of understanding their crimes. So my parents were prison guards, okay?
So they both were guards?
Yep, my mom worked in the women's building, my father worked in the men's building. And it was worse, kind of having parents that were prison guards was worse than having parents that were Army guards. I could put hospital corners on my bed by the time I was in kindergarten. People always say, "You're so organized." Being disorganized was not an option in my house. I was probably color coding my closet by the age of 7. So that is a skill that every single one of us learned. It served me well, me well throughout my life, but I learned that really early on.
Your dad too? He had little things
Super,
that he...
yep. My parents, because my parents both worked, this was the 50s, that was unusual. There was no division of labor in our house. My father cooked, my father did laundry, my father did grocery shopping. It was who has time this week to do what, who's going where with the kids, and they just divided everything up.
Your schooling?
Okay, so from grades K to 8, I had the Presentation Sisters of the Blessed Virgin Mary at St. Mary's School. And it's unique. My family was unique because when we hit 6th grade, we got a choice. Like, I don't know what it was about 6th grade, but in 6th grade, we got a choice. We could continue in Catholic school or we could go to the public school. So everybody except my older sister and I left. They all went to the public school starting 6th grade. I stayed, I went K through C, actually. We'll probably get to that. My sister, I went to Our Lady of Lourdes High School in Poughkeepsie. We had Newburgh Dominicans, and my sister left after 10th grade, but I stayed. I graduated from Our Lady of Lourdes.
And you had the Newburgh Dominicans.
Newburgh Dominicans.
Anything exciting or anything unusual happen in your high school?
The only thing is that that Our Lady of Lourdes, well, first of all, it was college prep. So out of everybody in my high school, everybody in my senior class went to college. It was not an option. You just knew you were going to college. That was very different than the public school. So nobody in my family ever went to college. And when I told my father I was going to college, and he's like, "No, you're not. Nobody in this family goes to college." And I'm like, "Well, I am." And I had to figure everything out. I had to figure out how to pay for it, how to get in, everything. And yeah, so
So where did you go to college?
I went to Berry College for.
You mean Arbery University?
Yeah, I mean Arbery College. Yes,
What are you laughing about that? That's very good.
Yeah. I had a guidance counselor, a Marist brother, and I trusted him, and I used to go and talk to him all the time. And my parents waited until I graduated from high school, and then they took early retirement from the state of New York, and they moved to Florida. And so I was looking for a college in Florida. And I looked in we didn't have the internet, so I'm looking at books. And St. Leo College had a lot of pictures that looked like if I went there, I was going to have fun. Now, I was 17, so it's not like I'm making the best decisions in the world. And so...
But you had the brother who...
he
Marist
yeah,
brother.
and fortunately, take that out, Scott. I trusted him. So he said, oh, no, you're not going to St. Leo's. St. Leo's is a party school. I'm like, yeah, I kind of gathered that from the pictures. He's like, I have the perfect school for you. You are going to get a wonderful education. And I trusted him, so... I went to Barry, and I started looking at Barry catalogs, and I'm like, this is not a girls' school. And he's like, don't worry about it. They have a brother school, too. And Barry's thing was, your place in the sun. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool. Okay, so I go to Barry. And I have to tell you that the education at Barry was outstanding. It was wonderful. But Barry
Many nuns were there at that time, too, weren't they?
Oh, plenty. Yeah, lots of nuns.
But anyone in particular that...
Yeah, there were a lot of them, but I'll get to the main one when you ask me how I got into religious life. But Barry was a girls' finishing school. I'm not that. I mean, I'm not. People, really wealthy people went there. The president of the Bahamas' daughter went there. I was so out of my element. So anyway, I stayed at Barry for 2 years.
You stayed at Barry for 2 years?
Yeah.
If it was a wonderful place and wonderful education, what changed your mind?
You know the answer to this. You really want me to go there?
Yes. This is your story.
So, after 2 years at Barry, I was doing well academically. I might have had some behavioral issues. I was invited to leave. Okay. In my defense, it wasn't just me. There were about 4 of us that were invited to leave. And one of them eventually entered also, but she left the community too. So we were invited to leave, and the condition on our invitation was if we accepted it, there would be nothing on our transcript indicating it. So
you don't want to get into why you were invited to leave?
No, Sister Linda and I will take that secret to our graves. She's not talking, and neither am I.
Sister Linda Bevilacqua.
Yes, but I can tell you that I earned it. I earned that invitation to leave.
You've got our curiosity, Marianne.
Yeah, well, see, if you can get it out of Sister Linda, I'll agree to it, but otherwise, nope, not telling.
Okay, well, you really kept that secret, because I have known that you were invited to leave, but I never knew, well, like knowing you, I can imagine. So what did you do?
Well, at that point, I could hear my father saying, nobody in our family goes to college. And I thought, because I came from a lower middle class family, I really worked. So I worked through college. I drove an ice cream truck, I worked at McDonald's, I worked in nursing homes, and I could see myself doing that for the rest of my life, and I panicked. And I thought, no, absolutely not. And instantly, I grew up. I applied to the University of South Florida. They had the top physical education school in the country. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew I had to do something, and it was cheap. So I applied. So
you just went into PE, physical?
No, I was in phys ed. That was my major. I was always going to be a phys ed teacher.
At that other university, or college?
Yeah. And so I applied to the University of South Florida. I got accepted, and that was that. Well, I kind of turned my life around, but it still was kind of like, at one point, I remember, I think about this now, and I think, if my students did this, we had to sign a contract for the grade we wanted. And to get an A, you had to do this. To get a B, you had to do this. And to get it. So I signed the contract to get a C. And my advisor said, a C? This is your major, and you want a C? I said, we just need a C to pass, right? So we're talking about not a high level of maturity here. So, but
you had matured instantly.
Instantly. But then after that, I kind of caught on, and she pointed out to me that you would never get into graduate school unless you had a 3.0. And I was like, so what? I'm never going to graduate school. I don't care. I don't even want to go to school. I just have to do this to be a teacher. So, but I did get my grade point up. I did have to go to graduate school, because if you're a teacher, at least in this state, you had to get a master's degree. So thank God I listened to her at some point.
So where did you teach?
I taught for 3 years at Hudson Elementary School.
Okay. Hudson in Florida.
Yep. And then I entered the Adrians, and once I finished formation, I taught for 10 years at Dominican High School.
Well, tell me, how did you become an Adrian Dominican?
Okay, so I had a pretty good life. I mean, I was in my 20s, my young 20s, and I had a job that with a future. I had money, I had an apartment, I had minimal college debt. I had relationships. I was like happy, but I just kept thinking something's missing. So I kept trying to find that something. So one summer I hitchhiked across country. I did all kinds of things. I'm gonna find that thing that's missing, and I never found it. And I kept in touch with Joan Weithman through my after I left Barry. She was one sister that I related to more closely than anyone else, and I kept in touch with her like twice a year. I would call her, and I just at one point I said, "Man, I don't know. I'm good. I'm happy, but something's missing. Something's missing." And she said, "Why don't you come up here and make a retreat? We'll talk about it." So I did, and at the end of the retreat, I went home and I called her back. I said, "I think I want to look at religious life."
Where did you make the retreat?
I came up here. She was like Pontiac area, I think.
Okay.
I didn't know
Anyway.
Michigan at the time, so I don't know. I just knew I flew in and she picked me up and we went north somewhere. And and so then when I went home, I thought I still was in kind of the retreat mode. And I said, I think I want to look at entering. And then we went through the process. She put me in touch with Lois Paha. And within a year, I was a Dominican sister of Adrian. Well, probably not. I had entered. I don't think I became a Dominican sister till that August.
It doesn't go that fast.
Yeah, not that fast. I'm an accelerated program, but not that fast.
So then you're here, and I know you spent some of your formation years at Weber.
Yes, I did.
And I first met you, must have been 3 in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Was that part of the Barry?
Yeah, I was. I was. I don't know why. Joan was at Weber for some reason, and I was driving up to see her, and my car broke down in Youngstown, Ohio, and I didn't have charge cards or anything. It was a different time, so I had to wire. My boyfriend had to wire money to get my car fixed, and
so
then
you had a boyfriend.
I was engaged at that time.
You were engaged.
Yeah, and it was his car.
His car. Something else about his car.
Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. And
It's just a side of you that we wouldn't know.
So my boyfriend was a race car driver, and he had a lot of cars, and I love cars. There's 2 things I'd do different if I wasn't a nun. I'd have a fast car and a pontoon boat, but that's another story for another life. So I had a Firebird. He had a Firebird, and I drove it. It was my car because he had a lot of cars, and I wrecked it at one point. But in between we broke up. We broke off the engagement, but I still had the car, and then I wrecked it, and then I kept the insurance money. That's my only regret in my entire life. And when he found out about it, he just looked at me and he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know." So I have this thing about regrets. Like, I want to go to bed every single night with no regrets. So I do like the short examine every night. I think, is there anything that I have to fix? And then in the morning, I go over it again and I go talk to anybody I need to talk to so that I can die with no regrets. I could never find him again. Anytime I went home, I tried to find him and I couldn't. And then I couldn't remember like how to spell his last name. So I was trying every variation of the phone book, obviously, because we didn't have the internet. I wanted to give him back his money. That would be the one thing that I would want to do, is give him back his insurance, the money for his car. But I never found him, so I'm going to die with that regret. Davey, if you're watching this, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's move on. All right, so you taught at Dominican for 10 years.
Yeah, those
Okay,
are great years.
And the kids loved you dearly. And then you left Dominican. What happened?
Well, I wanted to do something else, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I went and talked to my spiritual director. I was looking at medical school, but I didn't know, like I always had a science interest. I just didn't have the maturity to do medical school when I went to college, and that's something that you have to commit to immediately. So I was trying to decide, did I want to do medical school? What did I want to do? And I thought, no, you know what? I really love teaching. I love everything about teaching. So I thought, well, maybe I could be a university professor and I could train teachers. So I applied to get my PhD in exercise physiology. And it wasn't well understood in the community, so I was denied twice.
Denied, what do you mean? By the study?
The studies board denied my application for study twice.
Because you're going to study PE.
Well, that's what they thought.
Yeah.
That's not what exercise physiology is. We did not do a good job of explaining it. But yes, one of the comments was, why do you need a PhD to teach tennis? Yeah, well, I don't, but I'm not teaching tennis. So once I could figure out what all the barriers were, then I could educate people as to what exercise physiology was and how important it was to our future. And now, look at how much I can do with the aging population because I have that background. So I got my PhD in exercise physiology and health.
Where'd you get it?
At the University of Toledo. And I had received my master's degree from Wayne State in exercise physiology, and I loved the school. I loved the diversity. I liked being in the city. I liked everything about it. So I had to find a job now, ministry, and I was applying wherever there were openings in the area, and I got an offer for the tenure track position at Eastern Michigan University. And I was like, well, I have to have a ministry, and it's my only offer, but I don't want to go there. I want to teach at Wayne State. So I took a shot, and I wrote to two of the professors that I had. And I said, I just got my PhD. I know I'm supposed to enter the tenure track. I know it's really important. I'm supposed to build a career and climb the ladder, but I don't want to. I want to teach at Wayne State. I want to work with that population of students. So I will come there as a lecturer. I don't care if I have no job security. I don't care about anything. I just want to be at Wayne State. So they brought me in, they interviewed me, they hired me, and then they advertised a tenure track position. And of course I had to apply for it and compete with everybody else who was applying, but I got it. And I've been there ever since.
You mentioned very quickly successes that you've had. Who have been some people along the way, particularly in your professional life right now, that are very significant in who you are at this point in your life?
Just my professional life?
Whatever, yeah.
Well, we have a team of women at Wayne State that coordinate all the programs. And they're my girls. We're each other's girls. Mm-hmm. We text each other at night. We solve the problems of the world. They're involved with my religious life. I'm involved with their kids. And like Nate is our assistant dean. He's our boss. But I don't believe Nate could do his job without us. He's wonderful. He's very, very good boss. But underneath every boss is a team that makes things work. And these girls are that. They're really, really good women.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been here on campus. You've done some research. Wayne State is famous for research. So you've done some research, and we've participated. Could you just tell us maybe about one of those?
Yeah. So I actually started my career at Wayne working with elderly. Like, it's always been a passion for me to keep people healthy through the end of life. Nobody wants to end up in a physical condition where they can't take care of themselves. Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to age in place. So what can we do to facilitate that? That's always been my passion. So I started my career with that, had NIH money to do that. But then that
NIH?
National Institutes of Health. That money dried up, and then I had to go into obesity research in the high schools. But now I can do whatever I want because I'm a full professor, so I'm back in that. So what we're looking at now is we looked at three things. One is their functional fitness. So the things you need to do the activities of daily living. You need to dress yourself. You need to be able to shower. Anything that you need to do to live independently. And there's some tests, physical tests that are correlated to that. And then we also looked at cognitive ability. We did 5 paper and pencil tests that enable us to assess your thinking. And then we did something that's really cool. We put caps on the people and we measured their brain waves.
Now, these are the sisters you're talking about here on campus.
Yep, our sisters. Yeah, we have we did it here and we did it in Farmington Hills, and we measured the brain waves. And then now what we're looking at is how do all these things relate? And what we found, preliminary findings. You won't know the final. We don't know the final stuff till we analyze everything and publish. But the preliminary findings are people who are more physically fit are also more cognitively fit. And the really cool thing that we found is that when you're measuring the brain waves, you also can measure tension in the head muscles. And there's a muscle on the temple right here. In the US, people are always tense. That muscle is always activated. If you do these measurements in other countries, you don't get that. But we asked the sisters for 3 minutes to say the Our Father silently and to themselves, and that muscle instantly relaxed. So there's something about that, the rote prayer, that causes a peaceful sensation and a muscular relaxation in people.
Interesting. And the women are very excited about getting the results.
Yes, we're coming back to give them the results.
Yeah.
And then we're actually submitted a grant to the Templeton Foundation. We want to get funding so that we can do this large scale. We want to get like 100 people and do some intervention. So we're looking at this for kind of a long range thing.
Okay, not one other thing, but you've had some wonderful experiences and opportunities in the profession that you're in. Would you care to share with us?
Yeah, I have. Actually, my entire life I have been blessed. I'm not one of those people that thinks that God has a path for you and you have to figure it out. I think that you just walk your path and you try to do the right thing, and then you look back on it and you're like, oh wow, God put me there, God put me there, God put me there. So I have a whole life of this. But professionally, because Wayne State's not a teaching institution, it's a research institution. So you can't get tenure, you can't progress through the ranks unless you're a fairly competent researcher. But once you become a competent researcher, then other people want you. So I've had the opportunity to travel. I've traveled obviously all over the country, but I also have had the opportunity to travel internationally. I've been invited to other countries to speak, and last May I spent 2 weeks in China talking about my research and how we do health education in the United States. They got some money from the government. They want to institute health. They're very concerned about their students they have a high rate of suicide, just like we do, and they're concerned about how do we deal with mental health issues and how do we address that in our population. So I went to talk with them about that.
How did they understand you? They had an interpreter. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was fun. They had, so I had to give them my slides in advance, and I also wrote everything I was going to say out, which is really hard for me because I don't operate on a script. And then they translated everything into Chinese. So when I was talking, there was my slides, and then there were my slides in Chinese, and then I would say a sentence, and the Chinese interpreter would repeat my sentence in Chinese. So it was quite an experience.
Wonderful preaching. Talk about our preaching. That's awesome. Another experience I thought that you had that I witnessed was the students at Siena, the sports department.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I know that was one that you kept saying no to. As China was an invitation that you kept saying no to.
Yeah, I know. I say no.
But to sit there, to sit back and watch those, how many kids were there? 500 or 600?
Oh yeah.
Coaches and the field house.
Yeah.
And I could see the teacher. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
So yeah, I said no to that a lot because I was terrified 500 students. I've never talked to 500 students before. My classrooms are 30. Now I have talked at conferences to 500 people, but I don't know them, and I'm going to leave them in a half hour. This is us. This was Sienna. So I was terrified. So I kept saying no, 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 and then I thought, you know what? They're not going to stop asking. The only way to get them to stop asking is to do it. So I met with them, I talked with them about what kinds of material they wanted, and then I put it together, and I tried to talk about things that the athletes need to know to be good athletes. And I can pretty much read an audience, so I can tell if I should move quickly or slowly through some of the content. And it was just a really, really good, captive audience. And a lot of them stayed after to ask personal questions about their own personal training, and several of them emailed me afterwards about personal training issues. So I think I'm glad I did it. It's just one of those things I had to get over the fear. I was terrified of going to China too, but I did it.
So you've had many invitations in your lifetime. The most recent were very positive. Or even your first uninvitation, you were invited out. You're known for something else. When we see you coming down the hall, we see you in the dining room. What happens to us?
Let me just guess here. You're talking about my reputation for being a fitness nut, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's get that out of the way.
Takes one to know one.
I'm a fitness nut. Let's get that out of the way. But it's much, much deeper than that. So actually, it's very Dominican. So I became a fitness nut through the process of my time with the Dominicans. 40 years ago, I entered this community, and you said to me, Marianne, welcome. What's ours is yours. Take what you need. And I said, well, thank you. What's mine is yours too. And then I thought about it. You're a multi-million-dollar corporation, and I'm me. What do I have? I have nothing except my talents and my gifts. So I'm going to give them to you. And I've come to believe through the process of prayer and study through many years, my commitment to my health is my contribution to the common good. It is my commitment and my sense of corporate responsibility to this community. I need to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can, so that I can continue to be productive and to produce and to serve the mission. So I'm a fitness nut, but it is so, so, so much more than that.
What a powerful response. Thank you. Is there anything else as we conclude our time together that you'd like to say to us?
Yeah, just one more thing. So back when I was at Barry, one of my professors called me a big blob of wasted potential. You know who you are, sister. And the thing is, she was right. I was a big blob of wasted potential. In one way, that was good, because right now I have a whole bunch of little wasted potentials in my classroom, and I'm really good with them. I can get them right away, and in 16 weeks, help them to actualize their potential. But anyway, if you've watched this tape, if you're still watching, then it will be abundantly clear to you that I was not the most mature person in the world. So I entered this community immature and a big blob of wasted potential. And you took me, and you taught me, and you mentored me, and you coached me, and you exposed me to a variety of experiences, and you loved me into the woman that I am today. I will be forever grateful for that. I love being a Dominican sister of Adrian, and I cannot thank you enough. Now I sit here in my mature senior years thanking you. I will do anything for you.
And Marianne, I want to thank you in the name of the congregation. You have certainly given back tremendously to us in various ways in our congregation and our community life. So thank you, and know that you are with us in prayer and spirit, and we are with you. Thank you.
You're welcome.